Hello, and today we are going to go over the Armies of Faith Crusade Army available for narrative play in Warzone Nachmed Vigilus Alone book. We're going to go over why you might consider playing this army. Then we're going to go over the rules of this army. And then we're going to go over an actual crusade force made up using the rules for this army and how it was selected. I hope you enjoy this video. The Armies of Faith are nothing new to the world of 40k. You can find them in crusade forces and in fiction, such as the Gaunt's Ghost series, to name but one. The Sabbat World Crusades being a good example of different forces of the Imperium uniting together to enact a war of faith, specifically centered around faith. The Armies of Faith Crusade rules will enable you to reenact the Sabbat World Crusades or any other normally run Imperial Crusades. However, this is also meant to illustrate fractured Imperial forces fighting in a protracted war zone shorn from central command and only held together by the common faith in the Emperor. And specifically, this is a great way of showing Imperium Nihilus and the forces trapped on that side, far from the light of the Astronomicon, fighting it out, trying to make a go of things. For an example of just how dark things have gotten in Imperial Nihilus, one only has to read Spears of the Emperor by Aaron Debensky-Bowden. So if you're interested in recreating like a Sabbat World Crusade or the desperate forces trying to hold out in Imperium Nihilus, an Army of Faith Crusade list is definitely right up your alley. When creating an Army of Faith order of battle for the first time, and whenever you add units to it, you can only include the following: Adeptus Astartes, Adeptus Ministorum, and Astra Militarum units. Sorry, Death Watch is out, Grey Knights are out. It's just basic Marines / Dark Angels, Blood Angels, Space Wolves, Sisters of Battle, and Astra Militarum. So when you muster an Army of Faith, in order to take things from the three different factions, you have to first take a troop choice from them. That unlocks everything else from that detachment. However, everything you add gains the Army of Faith keyword. And furthermore, your headquarters, your warlord, has to contain at least one priest unit to make up the Army of Faith. Now, in order to run different types of, like Repentia, you have to have one unit, at least one unit, of Sisters of Battle. In order to run Terminators, you have to have at least one unit of Tactical Marines. In order to run Lemon Rust Battle Tank, you have to have at least one unit of Guardsmen. And that's it for it. It does not follow any other structured point as far as detachments and that go. So you can have an HQ unit from a Marine unit and a Tactical Marine unit, and then you can also have Guardsmen with no HQ from the Guards section. You just have to have the troop choice to unlock the rest of the Imperial Guard Codex for you. Same with the Sisters. As long as you have the troops, you can unlock the other parts. And that's kind of makes for a very unique sort of army. And it plays a little different too. One of the main mechanics of this army is it handles itself in two different stages. It handles itself in the fervor stage, where it's trying to gather fervor, trying to build enough momentum to launch a crusade, and then the retribution stage, as the War of Faith is actually really kicking off. And one of the ways this is done is through religious fervor points. Now, in the first part of the crusade, you're in the fervor stage, where you're trying to basically gather up as much religious fervor as possible. And you can gain fervor points. If you won or drew a battle, you gain D3 plus 3 religious fervor points. If you lost the battle, you gain D3 religious fervor points. If the enemy warlord was destroyed, gain D3 religious fervor points. If the enemy chaos units were destroyed, gain D3 religious fervor points. And all of these add up as long as you're in the fervor stage. And you stay in the fervor stage until you reach 20 fervor points for your army. At that point, you can then go to the retribution stage if you so choose. However, you may wish to build up more religious fervor points. You can also lose religious fervor points if you lose a battle. In the retribution stage, you lose religious fervor points. For example, if you lost a battle, you lose D6 religious fervor points. If your warlord was destroyed, lose D3 religious fervor points. If any unit in your army was destroyed by a chaos unit, failed an out of action test, lose D3 religious fervor points. And once you get below 5 religious fervor points, you're back into the basically fervor stage, not the retribution stage. And each stage comes with different things. And of course, being Crusade, they also have an agenda, Reclaim the Relic, and that will allow you to gain even more fervor points. And you can do this during the fervor stage again. That's the only time you can use this particular agenda. Also, there is an additional requisition point called Martyrs to the Cause. Now, you purchase this requisition when an Army of Faith unit from your army fails an out-of-action test. You gain a number of religious fervor points equal to the number of crusade points that that unit has. And then you remove that unit from your order of battle. So, for example, say you have a unit of 10 guardsmen who fail an out-of-action test. Instead of giving them a battle scar, just drop them from your order of battle, spend the requisition point, gain 3 fervor points, and then use the 3 extra points and supply you got for power level to just add another unit back in, worth 3 power level. Now, during the retribution stage, after you've gotten your 20 faith points and you're now ready to actually launch your Crusade of Wrath, you get certain abilities army-wide, such as add 1 to the movement characteristic to models with this ability, and each time a unit with this ability is selected to shoot or fight, you can re-roll 1 wound roll when resolving that unit's attacks. Now, that takes the place of specific chapter tactics and orders for Sister of Battle or regiments for Astra Militarum. You lose that, but you gain this instead, and it works out pretty good. They also have an agenda in there called Bringing Light to the Darkness, where you can gain experience points with this agenda for bringing the light to other units. By every time you destroy an enemy unit, it adds 2 to the tally, and then you get 1 experience point to a maximum of 3 for each mark on its Bringing the Light tally. So, and furthermore, for every 5 marks, you also gain a religious fervor point, which is nice. The other nice thing about this is once you're in the retribution stage is you have divine retribution. You can spend a religious fervor point from your total to get certain things to happen. Consider this almost like miracles, like divine aim, 1 point of religious fervor. Use this ability before an Army of Faith model in your army makes a ranged attack. You can ignore any or all modifiers to the hit roll for that attack. You have things like Divine Fury. Use this ability after making a charge roll for an Army of Faith unit in your army. Add a number to the result equal to the number of religious fervor points spent to gain this effect to a maximum of 3. So, yeah, it pretty much is going to guarantee you that long bomb charge. In addition to the Crusade relics and abilities you can get via your regular codex for Marines, Sisters of Battle, and Astra Militarum, the Army of Faith also comes with its own specific Crusade relics you're allowed to give, such as the Blood of St. Calgar. It basically adds 1 to the attacks characteristic of the bearer. While your army is in the fervor stage, if this model is on the battlefield at the end of the battle, you gain 1 additional religious fervor point. And while your army is in the retribution stage, once per battle in your command phase, you can lose D3 religious fervor points. Until the end of the turn, add that result to the bearer's strength characteristic. So all of a sudden, you can make a priest pretty mighty with an eviscerator capable of doing truly heroic, saintly things, which I find to be a nice touch. And here we have an army of faith from Imperial Nihilus. This is a single detachment. It is a crusade detachment, and it is made up of one battalion. Notice the mixing and matching of units. This is what one battalion can look like using the Armies of Faith Crusade. And I'll quickly run down how I came to this army and how it works in Crusade. So using Crusade rules, I started off with 50 power level, and I had 5 requisition points. I immediately cashed in 4 of those requisition points, to each one giving me an additional 5 power level to add to the force. Now, in order to have anything, the first thing you have to do is have a troop unit. And so I went with a tactical squad, a 5-man tactical squad, as you can see here, with a melt-a-gun and a sergeant with power sword and pistol. Furthermore, I decided to use my old Marines that I haven't used in years, because let's face it, they aren't getting the Primaris treatment, and it's kind of a nice way to, play them now that I can just have them stuck in Imperial Nihilus with no Primaris Marines, because, well, they haven't gotten the technology out there yet. So that's how I started it off, with a 5-man tactical squad for 5 power level. I then spent a grand total of 6 power level points to give them a Razorback with a twin-link las cannon. I then spent 10 points to take a 10-man tactical squad. Again, this Army of Faith Crusade list is a great way to let you kind of dust off your old Marine models and still get some use out of them without being tied to Primaris. I then spent 4 points to add a Rhino to the unit. I then spent 6 points to add a Chaplain with a jump pack. And I also spent my last requisition point in order to give him a Warlord trait of Iron Resolve. So my Chaplain will be leading the Apocalypse Angels and this crusade with his Iron Resolve. I then spent an additional 5 points to throw in an assault squad with a sergeant with power fist and 1 flamethrower. I then spent 3 power level to throw in a infantry squad from the Imperial Guard Codex, which unlocks pretty much everything now from the Imperial Guard Codex for me. I then spent 6 points on a Chimera for use by that particular squad, and make sure it was decked out all holy-like. I then spent an additional 3 power level to throw in another guard squad. And then I spent an additional 6 points to give them a Chimera as well. I then spent 3 points to take a 5-man Adeptus Sororitas squad, unlocking the Adeptus Sororitas Codex. I plan on using these girls mostly to act as an honor guard for the next unit I selected from that codex. For 3 points, we went with an HQ squad. We went with an Imperial Missionary with his war prayers, and he's going to be mustering more of the Guard and the Adeptus Sororitas part. And lastly, for 9 points, nothing says religious fervor quite as much as 3 penitent engines. And that will round off this list. However, I'm going to give you a quick example of how this list can then expand after you've played a few more games of Crusade. And when we take this army up to 100 power level, which isn't that hard to do in Crusade, you can see we throw in some Arcoflagellants. All the other stuff is still there. Only we'll throw in a Lemon Russ tank. A Lehman Russ, sorry, not a Lemon Russ. And at the same time, let's throw in some Seraphim to accompany the army, not to mention a Vindicator. And with that, you have a rough idea of a Armies of Faith Crusade army that you can use. For me, I'm really enjoying this Army of Faith Crusade army concept and idea, just because it's letting me dust off models that I painted quite a while ago, and mix them in with some of the newer stuff to create a unique and new army. Not the most powerful. It's not meant for match play or competitive play, but I think it would be a lot of fun to do a narrative of basically these religious nuts stuck in Imperium Nihilus, the Dark Imperium, just trying to survive. And hopefully I can convince a few of our local players here who are playing Chaos or Xenos, who want to be picking on the Imperium and the Imperium Nihilus, to maybe run a quick campaign with some crusade battle reports featuring this army of faith. I hope this has been entertaining for you. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please hit like and subscribe down below, and continue watching, and hopefully we'll have a battle report with these guys before too long.